Hello, YouTube. It's week 2. We're recapping. We go right through everything. Texas is the big story. Colorado's the big story. It's college football. Like, subscribe, comment, enjoy. Hello, and welcome to Unnecessary Roughness Barstool's College Football Podcast. It is, as always, brought to you by the fine people at Casey Smith Speak.
High noon hard seltzer. So it is right now almost 3 a.m. on the East Coast. We are all getting together because we just got back from Tuscaloosa. Jack is holding up a high noon. There were so many high noons in the crowd today in Tuscaloosa. I was drinking one. I got to say, drinking one at a live college football show hit so hard since I couldn't do it last year since I was pregnant. High noon is back. The tequila, the game day pack, the tall boys. You guys know the drill. High noon. You can find it everywhere. You
High
guys know
noon's the best.
You're drinking the
best
line.
ever. It was flowing, I would assume, in every state today. Every state in America. And it's beautiful. The can is beautiful. The blue can, the green can. Every can is beautiful. We love high noon. Yes, we were toasting high noon all day today. Great day of college football thanks to high noon.
There you go, Brandon. I know
Yep, give it to
we
me.
got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about,
and we're not going to dilly-dally tonight. Like you have already said, it is currently 1:46 Central Time Zone. That's where you and I are, in the Eastern Time Zone, where the producer and Jack and Katie both are. It is 2:46. It is late. We had a long day. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to dilly-dally. Right to it. We started in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The game of the week going in was Alabama and Texas. Huge opportunity for Texas. And guess what? Texas took that opportunity and ran with it. Listen, there's the stupid cliche of Texas is back. I don't care about Texas is back. I don't care if we say it again. I know one thing. Texas is here. Quinn Ewers is here. This team has arrived. 34-24 winners over Alabama. And every single time Alabama looked like they were going to grab the momentum, every single time Jalen Milroe made a play or somebody else made a play for Alabama, Texas, usually Quinn Ewers stood up and said, nope, not tonight. We are better than you. Casey, Texas back, whatever. Tonight, they went into Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and for the first time in 4 years, somebody went into Tuscaloosa, Alabama and won, and they did it because they were flat out a better football team than Alabama was.
They were by far the superior football team. And it sucks that the Texas is back thing is so cliche because of just the memes and the jokes every single year that we've seen. But you're right. They are here. And I guess it was just the cliche of thinking that Alabama is Alabama. The SEC is better than the Big 12. Now looking back, I don't know why I convinced myself otherwise. Clearly, Quinn Ewers is a better quarterback than Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe, he would have certain moments where he would make great passes and then make horrible decisions. The 2 turnovers they had that ended up turning into 10 points for Texas. I mean, he just could not keep it consistent enough. Alabama didn't have an answer for them, and this was the Quinn Ewers redemption game. Had he stayed healthy last year, they probably would have beaten them in Austin. They go into Tuscaloosa and do it. And Texas is the real deal. The Texas is back thing, whatever. I think they are back, but they are the real deal. There's no question in my mind.
Jack, you and I have been on Texas early this year. We were on them last year until the wheels fell off, but we were on them early, and nights like this from Quinn Ewers are why we were on them in the first place, Jack.
I mean, the last time that we saw a team go in to Alabama and do this, it's one of the most iconic college football teams we've ever seen. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, we could go on and on and on. I'm not saying that this Texas team is that, but they just got through the hurdle that was the number one hurdle, at least in my mind. I guess you could argue it wasn't, because even if they lost this game, they were still alive. Same with Alabama, which is a question I think we should talk about. Maybe not today, but the next show is that, it's not the end of the road for Alabama, just like it's not the end of the road for Texas that they lost. But Texas, man, Quinn showed up, and we've been talking about it all offseason. Can Quinn Ewers show why he was the number one college football recruit in the history of rankings? And he did that. And he did that in a big fashion. I think he finished with 2 touchdowns, or maybe 3, and 350 yards, 0 interceptions. Some of his passes were spectacular. It was phenomenal to watch. And I think Sarkisian also should get a lot of credit for a lot of the big plays that he put together.
Yeah, a lot of the night Quinn Ewers was throwing to wide open receivers. However, if you look even further at his numbers, Xavier Worthy dropped a touchdown in the first quarter that led to a field goal. But then Quinn Ewers came back and threw maybe the prettiest ball I've seen to Xavier Worthy right over his shoulders into the basket there. And Texas goes and beats Alabama. Katie, I know what I'm going to say about this, but Texas is now 2-0, and frankly, whatever about Texas is back, but they are absolutely a playoff factor right now, and I think they'll be all year.
No, I 100% agree. I had them in my Final Four. I also, it's they're here. You can't. There's no jokes to make. They went out and beat Alabama. Like even if you have all the memes, they just proved it in the same way that Dion. Like it worked. They had to shut people up. There's nothing you can say. It just Texas is back.
I don't understand, Brandon. I don't understand. I know we talked a little bit about this like while we were watching it together in Tuscaloosa, but why they didn't go away from Jalen Milroe throughout that game. I know we can get way more into it in the next episode and really break it down, but I that to me is still mind-boggling of why there wasn't a switch at any point when he was making those mistakes.
Well, let's talk Alabama. Let's talk Alabama. Go ahead, Jack.
Jalen Milroe, I still think, gave them the best chance to win due to his explosiveness. And he, even the pass he threw to Jermaine Burton was very good.
I think the answer with Jalen Milroe is not about Jalen Milroe at all. You could replace Jalen Milroe, but that's not going to make Alabama run for more than 3.8 yards a carry with their running backs tonight, which is what they ran for. They don't have the stud running back they used to have. They don't have the stud receiver they used to have. They don't have the stud offensive line they used to have. You can replace Milroe, and frankly, he had a couple of awful passes.
Awful.
But really, across the board, this isn't what Alabama is. This isn't what Alabama has been. I said it coming into the year. I've watched them now. I'll say it now. There's nothing elite about this team. Maybe they scratch and they claw, and maybe they stay in the race, and maybe they go 11-1, and maybe they are in the mix come November. That being said, this still isn't a high-end elite Alabama team. They don't have a high-end elite quarterback. They don't have high-end elite skill position players. They're just kind of there as far as an Alabama team goes. They, looking back, should they have been number 3? Well, you could argue that, but Alabama's always going to be up there and going to be trusted. But frankly, and this is a take that I was kind of going to save later in the show, but I think it's a good place now. The SEC might not be it this year. The SEC, LSU goes out and has a chance to prove against Florida State and gets smoked in the second half. Alabama has a home game, 100,000 fans in the stands. Texas comes in and just no fluke, just whoops them. And Georgia's been able to hide through 2 games because of their schedule. But if you look at the mid teams in the SEC, Mississippi State went to overtime tonight with Arizona. Missouri certainly struggled. Auburn did win at Cal, but Tennessee struggled mightily. South Carolina struggled for a while with Furman. I think the SEC is not very good this year.
I agree, and to even put it into more of like a microcosm, the SEC West is struggling. Like you mentioned, I mean, you guys beat Arizona. A&M loses to Miami, and that defense looked putrid. Like the SEC West, we came into the season with all these question marks of who's going to be the best team. We assumed it was going to be Alabama. Some people had LSU, but those questions still exist because I don't know who the best team. Know who the worst team is, but I know that it is a very slow start for the SEC West. And being in Tuscaloosa and watching the way that fans were reacting, we're sitting in the airport and all the drunk fans are coming in from the game to go get on their private planes, and they're all coming in. They don't even know how to react to losing like this. Like there were drunk guys coming in being like, Jalen Milroe's the worst quarterback in the world. And it's like, haha, it's funny. They're drunk. They're having a good time, but no one knows how to handle the way that Alabama played. But it's not just Alabama. It's everybody in the SEC outside of Georgia right now.
Well,
it feels like
when you look at Alabama and fans of Alabama, I had a tweet tonight, and it's kind of crazy to think about. Alabama fans went from Jalen Hurts to Tua Tagovailoa to Mac Jones to Bryce Young.
Yeah,
those are like all 4 of those guys are starting in the NFL tomorrow.
Insane.
Like I think of how the Colts went from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck, and obviously it didn't work out perfectly because Andrew Luck retired early. But it's I think Alabama fans, like, sorry guys, this is what a lot of teams have to deal with all the time. Like, the guy you thought was the guy was not the guy. And also, maybe those guys should have paid a little, like, I don't know what, this is something that's behind the scenes, and I don't know anything about this, so don't take this as me like saying I know it, but maybe they should have paid more for Drake May. Who knows?
Yeah, no, I mean, they obviously knew they had a quarterback situation when they went out and got Tyler Buckner after the spring was over. So it was never, it was never that comfortable of a quarterback position. And I still think Jalen Milroe probably their best option, but without Alabama's 2015 offensive line, and without their 2020 receivers, and without their running backs throughout the first or the last 15 years, hey, you can expect the quarterback to be a miracle worker, but that's not how it works.
I mean, he got sacked 5 times, like you guys said.
Texas's defensive line ragdolled Alabama's offensive line.
Ragdolled them. I mean,
all night.
It was
their offensive line is supposed to be a strength.
Well, and I mean, anytime, like, just on paper, when you talk about, like, in the trenches, the SEC and Big Ten are supposed to be the big boys. I mean, that joke is always made, right? It's like when we saw TCU lining up against Georgia, it was like, these guys don't look like they play in the same league. And, Texas is a very talented team, but I mean, it's not just Jalen Milroe's fault, obviously, because the offensive line couldn't protect him. They couldn't get the ground game going. And at the end of the day, like we've said, Texas was just a better team, and they are a force. And I know that, you've got Twitter right now saying, oh, don't worry, they'll go out and lose to somebody like Baylor or Kansas. I'm not saying that they're going to be perfect, but I'm also not saying they're not going to be, because this team is so talented. And that's not just Alabama not being Alabama. It's Texas actually being a good Texas version.
I don't know that there's anybody in the Big 12 that can fuck with them. I know it's dangerous. That's a dangerous thing to say, but on paper, like, you saw what Oklahoma looked like tonight. They look like crap tonight against SMU or whoever they played. This
SMU.
To me, it's just Texas looks in great position. And frankly, I like the trend early this year. Florida State went out and proved they are indeed a playoff contender by mollywhopping LSU. You had USC come to the forefront last year when they had 11 wins. We're starting to see this sport spread out nationally again. Mm-hmm. It's starting. It's no longer concentrated in a 200-mile radius in the Southeast. Now you got Texas, who is saying, hey, guess what? We're here. USC is saying we're here. Who's the team I mentioned earlier? I'm very tired.
Penn State.
Michigan, Penn State saying we're here. Notre Dame, Michigan, all over the country. You got these powers rising back up. Washington out west. All over the country, it's starting to sprout back up. And meanwhile, in the SEC, it's starting to kind of tamp down a little bit. And I think that is fantastic for the sport. Now, is that an overreaction based on 2 weeks? It could prove to be, but I do like the trend.
This is the best spot that college football from a popularity standpoint has been in. I think, at least in this podcast history, I can't think of a time that, I mean, obviously, and we'll get to him. I mean, Deion's massive. Texas being in the forefront is one of the biggest things that can happen to college football. I'm sure ESPN, Fox, and whatnot, they're doing, like, this is, and even us, I mean, like, we saw our numbers on our first episode of the season last week, like, and with Texas back now, it will only continue to go up. The popularity of football, there's so many fan bases that are like, saw it today, and I know you guys had a great crowd, but game day was at Alabama today, and when the game day crowd is small, it's a fan base that is just, oh, you guys come here 3 times a year, like, I'm not gonna get up at 9 a.m.
Yeah. By the way, just you talk about TV networks, I know it's a big time hypothetical because we have to see what shakes out in the SEC, but can you imagine if Alabama and Texas could meet up in the college football playoff again? Like, that's not out of the realm of possibility. Like, if Alabama runs the SEC West, and obviously if they win the SEC championship, but depending on what happens in the rest of the country, these are 2 teams that could potentially meet again. And if you're one of these TV networks, you're sitting back like, holy shit, we'd like to run that back. Because that game, even though it was a 10-point game,
Yeah.
Those two fan bases, we saw it up close and personal, Brandon. So much money, so much brand recognition, so much prestige, and Texas actually being back outside of the joke is so good for TV rights. I mean, that they're salivating at this.
Now, moving on from Texas and Alabama, Colorado did it again. I think Nebraska's probably awful, and that's fine. That doesn't.
Don't do it, Brandon. Don't do it.
No, I'm not. I'm not doing the Dion shit. I'm not doing that. Oh my God, Dion's greatest thing ever.
No, I'm not saying that.
Nebraska is awful. They are awful. However, Colorado treated them like you treat an awful team. Colorado struggled for probably about a quarter and a half before they realized what was going on, and then they just fucking thumped them. Colorado was better than Nebraska in every sense of the word. They were better offensively, they were better defensively, and they just choked them out slowly and methodically. Shedeur Sanders continues to be one of the stories of the season. 300 more yards, 2 more touchdowns, just efficient, of 31 of 42, efficient, doesn't miss big, doesn't make mistakes. Like he's the perfect college quarterback through 2 games for Deion Sanders and that team, and they've got weapons. They just keep they've got so many weapons offensively, and Travis Hunter didn't even have a big game offensively, but I think, was it Weaver that had 10 catches?
Yep.
They just spread you out and just keep finding your vulnerability, and they find that hot guy and they go with him. And now they have doubled their win total from last year. So whether you want to say Deion's this, whether you want to say Deion's that, they're 2-0, and last year that wasn't even a glint in somebody's eye. That wasn't even, you couldn't even think about that. So Deion does it again.
The offense started so slow. I think they punted their first 4 possessions, something like that. Of course, then everybody's jumping on, oh my God, see, the offense was so good against TCU because it was TCU's defense. And Shedeur, like you mentioned, still had 400 yards, and it wasn't even as explosive as we saw in week 1. I agree with you. I don't think Nebraska's that good. I think losing to Minnesota the way that they did was kind of fluky. I don't think Minnesota's a bad team. But again, the Vegas line never made sense to me. And I woke up this morning and I even tweeted it. I was like, I should be concerned with how confident I am that Colorado is going to win. And as it had nothing to do, obviously it had a little bit to do with how I feel about Deion, but I was like, what are we watching the same 2 football teams? Like this, it did not make sense whatsoever. But if you're a Colorado fan right now, every single thing that you were hoping happened in the offseason is happening, because not only did you get that marquee win in week 1, you come home. Boulder, the stadium there is just stunning. All the pictures with the background and it's absolutely beautiful. And in 2 weeks, that program is back to being what everybody is talking about. Everybody wants to get a piece of Colorado. You've got Shedeur sitting up there in the press conference afterwards talking about how it was personal, how Matt Rule talking shit. Just everything about Colorado fans right now, you have to be excited.
Hold on. Now, last week, we were told it was personal for Shedeur because he was playing a team whose offensive coordinator ignored him at some point in his career.
Yeah, no, it's personal. Yeah.
And now today, I'm not sure Matt Rule and Shedeur Sanders have ever crossed paths at all.
No.
Matt Rule was talking shit about Deion.
No, Matt Rule was talking. Matt Rule said a lot during the offseason.
Okay.
So he was saying Shedeur was he had a lot to say about my pops. So we took that personally.
And he did say about how Deion was typically how the conversation that Matt Rule was having was about how Deion was going about building his roster. Yeah. So, I think Shedeur, this is back-to-back weeks that it was personal.
I love it.
So they got Colorado State next week. What's personal with Colorado State?
It's within the same state. If you have an FBS school within Colorado that is not Colorado, the Buffaloes, it's personal to Shedeur next week.
A Colorado State fan parked in his parking spot.
Yes, somebody made him his coffee. He asked for half and half. They put almond milk in. It was a Colorado State alum.
Yeah, and it's personal now.
By the way, Colorado State next week. And not only is College Game Day going to be there, but Fox is going to be there for Big Noon Kickoff too. And
this is getting insane. No.
First of all, Brandon and I looked at the slate. Week 3 is horrible.
Oh my God.
The games are so bad.
Oh my God. Week 3 is
Awful.
Like, we'll be here on Saturday night and we'll do the podcast. I'm making a joke here, but like, maybe we can just skip next.
Right? Yeah, it's not good.
Maybe we
So-
can just skip it.
So it makes sense because of the Dion hype, but last year at one point, the only two teams in the country that did not have wins were Colorado and Colorado State. You saw like the graphic where it was just the state of Colorado and it was just like a big over. And now two of the network's game day shows are going to be there. That tells you all you need to know about how fast Dion turned around this program, because who cares about Colorado State?
Now we move on to another team. I think probably the third team on my list.
Wait, did you know about Jeff Sims?
Yeah, it's bad. Jeff Sims was real bad. When you're in a rebuild, for as Matt Rule is, you can understand why you need to get a stopgap quarterback. You need to get somebody to plug in until you get your real guy in there. And Jeff Sims just ain't. He's not a dude. Like, he's the opposite. Shedeur Sanders transfers in, and everything flows through him, and everything's perfect. Jeff Sims transfers in, everything flows through him, and everything just is shit. It's just terrible. He's not very good. That's the kindest way I can say it.
It's tough for Matt Rule because he's saying, "Oh, we're in the rebuilding phase," and he looks across the field, and then there's Dion, and he's 2-0, and he's the number one in the country.
Here's a team. Notre Dame is seriously good.
Mm-hmm.
They are good.
They are seriously good. I think the teams that have stood out so far the most this year, obviously Florida State with the big win in week 1, now Texas with the big win in week 2, and Notre Dame hasn't had the opportunity at the big win. They will in a couple of weeks when Ohio State comes to town. But they go on the road today and systematically destroy NC State. I don't think NC State's a bad football team. They're probably not a good football team either, but they went on the road and just took their heart. Sam Hartman with 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Audric Estime, with 100 and I wrote it down earlier. I don't fucking know. 189 yards. 134 on 14
100
carries.
yards. Just say that.
Whatever.
You're safe.
He had a lot of yards. He's good. And I realized something today. I was watching highlights of Estime. If you plucked him off a Notre Dame field right now and dropped him on a Notre Dame's field in 1976, nobody would bat an eye. He looks like a running back from the 70s.
Yeah, and he had, like, the name goes with it too, like Audric Estime. It's just like such like a retro name. I said this when we overreacted to week 0, and I'm still gonna stick by it. And like you said, you've got to see some competition, but I think Sam Hartman is, when you look at this team and you look at what Notre Dame has done on the national scale in the last decade or so, that Sam Hartman is the guy that is going to come in and he's going to be able to put them over the top. I'm not saying they're going to win the national title. I don't know what the rest of the season is going to look like, but I do think that he is actually the quarterback, the veteran guy, the skilled, talented guy that can push them into that next level. And we'll see when they play, a really, really talented team, or at least a really good team. But it's hard not to like what you see from Notre Dame right now. I mean, as much shit as I've talked about Notre Dame, and I like to mix it up with their fan base, they're a good football team, and they're a very good top 10 football team in the playoff mix, no doubt, through I guess 3 weeks for them.
All right, Casey, plug your ears. The other big winner from today.
Before Brandon.
Go ahead.
Before you continue.
Yeah.
I just want to say,
please.
Audric Estime, he must have been during the offseason focusing a lot on his health. And I think he may have been using Flex Pro meals to help out his nutrition plan, which is also, now we're not athletes, You were
right.
Brandon, you were Casey, you were Katie, but we're not the number one athletes in the world, but we are up against it during football season because, man, they talk about the freshman 15. What about the football season 15? I know it. You know it. And it's easy to gain 15 pounds during football season. Why? And guess what? Right? Anymore thanks to Flex Pro Meals.
Tell me more about Flex Pro Meals, Jack.
I need to know more, because you are so right. I was housing banana pudding earlier, so please tell me more.
Oh let me tell you something. Me and Casey found some banana pudding in that airport. If anytime you can get free airport banana pudding, you got to do it.
All right, so listen to this. All right, you can go get gourmet. That's right, gourmet Flex Pro Meals right now, delivered to your doorstep tomorrow for just $4.99 with code Barcel. That's right, you heard me. Gourmet meals cooked and ready to eat, only $4.99 each with code Barstool on flexpromeals.com.
$4.99, like $4.99.
Yes, go ahead. Make it easy on yourself. $4.99 gourmet meals. Just hit up flexpromeals.com and use the code Barstool. One more time, that's flexpromeals.com. Code, that's right. Say it, Casey. What is it?
Barstool.
Barstool. You know how to spell it. It's Barstool. Go to flexpromeals.com today. Do it now.
All right. Casey, again, plug your ears.
I don't even need to plug my ears.
The other big winner today, I don't want to say I called this, but this was a very entertaining game. And I'm going to go ahead and say something right now that you don't agree with, Casey, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think both Miami and Texas A&M are good football teams. I think Miami is a very much improved football team. I think A&M is a very much improved football team. They won the game 48-33, and they answered the bell, and Tyler Van Dyke is back on the scene. Last year, they hired the wrong offensive coordinator, and he went away for a year, and it was garbage. They got rid of the offensive coordinator. They changed, and now he's back out there throwing for 374 yards and 5 touchdowns against Texas A&M. Miami is on the way back. Miami looks like a much better version in year 2 under Mario Cristobal, and I think Texas A&M is pretty good too, Casey.
We talked about the SEC West earlier, and I mean, it is nice as an Aggie to like look around and be like, well, everybody's kind of struggling, and even if they're winning, it's close games. But the reason I disagree, I don't think that A&M is bad. I definitely think there's improvement, but I did the video, the instant reaction. It's just like, when do we stop making these excuses? How many years of Jimbo Fisher, how many years in general do we sit here and we say, well, they're not so bad, but they went and lost to double-digit loss in a half-empty stadium. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Miami. Tyler Van Dyke looked like the guy that we thought he was going to be last year today. But that DJ Durkin, I don't know what the hell he's doing. We were watching the highlights. You're like, there's no way Miami's going to score. Like, no, they're going to. The silver lining is I do think Connor Wegman is the guy for A&M. He's young. We'll see what happens. But I just can't sit here, and I hate when people are like, oh, you're a bad Aggie, you're trashing. No, it's just the truth. Like, how many years do we make these excuses? How many years in week 2 he's like, well, Jimbo's got to get all of his recruits. Like, no, I can't accept this loss and just be like, well, it's sunshine and rainbows. Like, fine, maybe the SEC West is down and they don't look like shit, but you don't lose like that if you're supposed to be hyped again every single year.
Well, you are going through the worst day of any college football fans year. The first loss of your college football team every year is the worst day. And so you're going through that and you're angry. And frankly, looking at these numbers, I didn't even know that Miami dominated this much offensively. They averaged 8.4 yards a play. That's pretty bad. However,
I miss Mike Elko. Mike Elko, please come back.
Texas A&M was never going to go 11-1 or 12-0 this year. I think this is a journey to get to 9-3 this year, maybe 8-4, 9-3, maybe even 10-2, and turn it around, and for next year be ready to go. That's what I think about A&M.
This is also something like, and you are right. Your first loss, especially with all the hype, always hurts. And I'm sure I'll cool down and be less dramatic tomorrow. But I said this in the instant reaction video as well. Like, if A&M turns it around, I'm going to be there. If they have the worst season in the world, I'm going to be there. That's what you do when you love your team. I was an Aggie when I was conceived. I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel with Jimbo Fisher. And I was, like jokingly, like, should I fire him on Twitter? Like, I just don't see this whole national championship thing anytime as long as he's the head coach. And we haven't won one since 1939. So it's not like we're used to it and now he's here. It just doesn't sit well that it's just like another year. All right, let's make excuses in week 2. Like, it just isn't working, whatever it is. And A&M has everything in place to be a top tier program. And it's like impossible to win. That's what it feels like.
Jack, what'd you think about Miami?
Yeah, I was just so shocked that Texas A&M's defense was just letting up these gaps. I mean, Casey has brought it up, and you brought it up, Brandon. It was just so shocking. Yeah, and I thought if you told me, man, Texas A&M scored 33 points, which I think they did, I would have said, oh, they win that game, and they didn't. And I will say, I think Connor Wegman played great, but yeah, it was just and it felt like everything was breaking right for Texas A&M. And then you looked up, and the biggest flaw was that it was 17-14. They went down the field, and then they missed a field goal. There was 55 seconds left, and they let them score, and it was 21-17. And I said to myself, okay, whatever, tough break. And then it just kept piling on. And yeah, I was really disappointed. But Miami, great performance. Tyler Van Dyke, way to just not let, people wrote him off for dead. And he's bounced back. And I think the offensive coordinator connection is so big in this sport. And that's why I was so impressed with and we'll get to this team, like why I was so impressed by Bo Nix in Oregon tonight, even though, they beat a team that lost to Wyoming last week, but, they still put up 38 points. That's really good.
Miami being as good as they look tonight, especially offensively, even though A&M's defense was garbage. The ACC, again, it just like the plot thickens and like puts a lot more pressure on Clemson too, because we've talked about Florida State, we've seen that, obviously we'll talk about North Carolina, but I mean Miami doing what they needed to do, it's just putting more pressure on Clemson to get their shit together, because the ACC is not just Clemson and everybody else.
Katie, happy annual overtime game with App State to you.
It's the colliding of the two worlds. Georgia Tech and App State, somehow we have no business being games with them. Every single year, we always play them, either lose them or have that game. And then we've had, if you guys remember, when we played NC State last year, missed a field goal. When we played in Oregon, the bowl game, it doinked, missed the field goal from very makeable distance to go to overtime. So it's kind of the horror stories of my worlds colliding, and it was back to reality. Everyone last week was like, oh, South Carolina is fine, but like North Carolina's great. No. South Carolina stinks.
Yeah,
I think North Carolina is the same level.
In fact, she just opened up my next point for me. I thought a lot of Saturday was a bunch of teams that were presumed to be at least good or average. I'm going to sneeze.
Bless you.
That's you.
He's awake now.
Okay.
It was a lot of teams that were expected to be good or average that were just absolutely kind of trash today. Like South Carolina struggled with Furman for most of that game. Houston goes out after opening their season last year and loses to Rice. Tennessee looked bad. Joe Milton looked bad against who the fuck
Austin
was it?
P.
Thank you. Austin P. Yes, they could barely score against Austin P. No, the list goes on. Ohio State only beats Youngstown State 35-7. Now I know they don't want to just embarrass anybody, but 35-7. I mean, that's not that great. I know there's more.
Michigan beat UNLV 35-7.
Clemson ended up winning 66-17, but they struggled for the first half against CCH. We all know who that is because I'm very tired.
Charleston
Southern.
Thank you very much.
It's going to be interesting to develop.
Oklahoma. One more. Well, I got to get this one in, Katie. Oklahoma. No. 28-11 over SMU. And there are more, but I'm tired and I'm not going to get to them. Yes, Katie.
It's going to be interesting what happens the next few weeks. What is rolling back the playbook, not putting stuff on film versus genuine struggles? I think that we're seeing both of them and can't tell a difference. Obviously, some are different, but there's a lot of blending together that I think we're going to figure out soon.
I'll tell you something. I think the teams that are going out and playing people and winning games are getting a huge leg up on the ones that aren't playing anybody. Like Florida State doing what they did in week 1, and now Texas doing what they did in week 2. I think they'll both be top 5 teams in the very near future. I think Texas might wake up a top 5 team tomorrow. Meanwhile, you got Ohio State out here dicking around with Youngstown State. You got Michigan dicking around with UNLV, and the defending national champs haven't really played a meaningful snap of football yet. So,
and Georgia won't, though, that for a while. That's, that goes back to their schedule is so easy. But, when you talk about playoff resumes, and especially as long as, with the 4 teams that we have right now until the format changes, getting those big wins like Florida State and like Texas have, you're boosted immediately, because it's like, well, the strength of their resume, like you go out, you beat Alabama, you beat LSU, even though LSU was very overranked. That's great. The Oklahoma thing to me is very bizarre, because like they, Dylan Gabriel, I think he had
they're not very good.
He had 4 touchdowns, but I thought they were going to go out and just smash SMU to like make the point, like I said last week with Arkansas State, they didn't. And, I said it on the college football show today, and it was a little bit of playing to the Texas crowd, but like what we're seeing right now is two teams about to go into the SEC, and Texas just proved, at least, we'll see when they have to play week in and week out in the SEC, but they are so much more SEC ready than Oklahoma is. It's not even funny. Like Texas is showing us like, all right, guys, like we're going to come in. It might not be perfect, but like we can go out and beat Alabama by 10. Oklahoma's dicking around with SMU.
Yeah, no, it wasn't great. Now before we go any further, Jack, what's going on at Michigan State right now?
Nothing great. This was, and it's an ongoing investigation, as they say, but Mel Tucker has been investigated by Michigan State University for a sexual harassment claim. And what is particularly, it's almost a
Tuck coming.
I'm going to let this play out.
Tuck coming.
Well, and also please, like we do need to make sure that we are specific here. He jerked off on the phone. Like
no. But we also have to. Do you know who the accuser is?
Brenda Tracy. So I was reading about it. She's like an activist for like
not an activist, the activist. I think Brenda Tracy may have spoken to every single college football program in America, and yeah, I mean, this has been an ongoing investigation by Michigan. The whole timing's very weird to me, because why is this released on us if this has been ongoing for months, as they have? And Mel Tucker has admitted to jerking off on the phone with
haven't we all?
But jerking off, it was phone sex and jerking off, and he said it was consensual. Brenda Tracy saying it's not, and it reminded her of her unfortunate experience. Brenda Tracy was, and this is what she talks about, was raped by 2 football players, I believe, when she was in 4. Yeah, in a very, very awful situation. And I'm not laughing at her situation that happened to her, but the whole, yeah, it's very weird. And it came out tonight at midnight, essentially.
All right, let's talk about this Monday. I don't want to talk about this.
All right, you asked me. I wasn't.
I know I did. I want you to explain it to me, because it actually broke. Like we got off the plane and then it was breaking, and I was like driving down the road trying to read it, and I didn't get much on it. But well, can I just go ahead and say to the people what we're going to be doing Monday? We're going to be doing something different. If you listen to this podcast for a long time, maybe you've gotten used to the podcast being in this current form, but we're actually going to do something different on Monday. Instead of recording a show and putting it out for you guys like we always do, what we're going to do is we're going to do it live. We're going to do it live on our YouTube. And we'll eventually, after we get done, we're going to upload that to the podcast feed. So you don't have to watch it live, because you will get it on the podcast feed. But we're going to record it live Monday so that we can include you guys on the chat, and you can talk to us and you can ask us questions live. And we're going to try that we're going to have our Saturday night recap episodes. We're going to try the live Monday episodes, and then we're going to do the preview episodes on Wednesday. So that Monday, 6:30 Central Time. No. Yeah.
Yes.
6:30 Central Time, 7:30 Eastern on Unnecessary Roughness YouTube.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about that. We'll get to mix it up. Brandon and Jack, you did it too. Whenever we had Sirius XM, every once in a while, you guys would come on when I was at the helm of CCK, and we would like answer calls. And some of the best interactions with fans is when we could actually like go back and forth with them. Obviously, Brandon, you had your show too. We've never done it with just Unnecessary Roughness listeners with the Roughnecks. So I'm very excited about it.
Yes, okay. And it's a live stream, and we will announce it fully. We'll tweet out the links. We'll put it on Instagram, everywhere. So you guys will know about it, but it's going to be easy, and you'll just be like, as long as you're subscribed to the YouTube and you have a YouTube account, you'll be able to ask questions, and trolls will not be rewarded, but people who do ask questions will be rewarded.
And then if you are an avid listener, like Brandon said, it will be available. So, you won't miss out. I'm
going to run through the scores in this country. And then y'all stop me when you hear a team you want to talk about. Last night in the ACC, Louisville 56, Murray State nothing. That's a nothing. Wake Forest 36, Vanderbilt 20. In a game, very frustrating day. It seemed like every game on the East Coast was delayed due to lightning at some point. Poor UVA. Virginia looked like they were going to get one. Looked like they were going to be fine. JMU comes back to beat them. JMU 36-35. I believe JMU scored the winning touchdown with inside the final minutes. But Virginia loses again on a day they honored the three fallen players from last year, and it looked like they were right there, but no, JMU ends up winning. Boston College, huge win for the Eagles. They are able to beat Holy Cross 31-28. Wow. Yeah, get those furries going, you fucking freaks. Purdue 24, Virginia Tech 17. Purdue bounces back from that week 1 loss. Virginia Tech bounces back from their week 1 win. Notre Dame 45, NC State 24. Georgia Tech 48, South Carolina State 13. Clemson 66, CCH again 17. Syracuse 48, Western Michigan 7. Miami, of course, winners over A&M in a game we've already talked about. North Carolina, for the second year in a row, beats App State in multiple overtimes. This time, 2 overtimes, 40-34. Duke cruises 42-7 over Lafayette. Now, here's one. Well, first of all, Florida State 66, Southern Miss 13. You know, I called this team the worst team in the Big 12 this year. And they go on the road 27-21 and beat a Pitt team that we all had high hopes for. Me and you especially, Jack. I thought Pitt was at least the 4th or 5th best team in the ACC. And I said Cincinnati was the worst team in the Big 12. And they went out and got a road win.
Did you see that Braden Smith catch, the highlight of it?
I did not.
Unbelievable.
I have for my shit list, I'll have something about that game.
You gotta watch. You gotta see the clip of that. It was making its rounds on social media. It's awesome.
All right. So in the Power 5, we go, of course, next to the Big 12 because that's where we go. Kansas on Friday night 34, Illinois 23. Utah says they survive against a game Baylor squad with their backup quarterback. Baylor led that whole game. That whole game they led. And if you had Baylor +7, God damn it, you deserve to win. They led the whole game.
Yes.
Game. And Utah scores to tie it with, I believe, 1 minute and 59 seconds left. Baylor throws a stupid fucking interception. And then this is a theme in this fucking conference, man, having the right bet, and they throw these goddamn interceptions late. I could have had a great gambling day. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, Utah 20, Baylor 13. Kansas State 42, Troy 13, BYU 41, Southern Utah 16. The Iowa Hawkeyes in the most Iowa Hawkeyes score of the day, 20-13 over Iowa State. Oklahoma, again, shits the bed kind of with a 28-11 win over SMU. West Virginia cruises over Duquesne, 56-17. There's a Cincinnati Pitt score again. And Oregon, number 15, Oregon goes to Texas Tech, who lost to Wyoming, and you knew they were going to be hungry. You knew they were going to come out full of piss and vinegar at home, and Oregon withstood that. They fell behind, I believe, 27-18 at one point in the fourth quarter. Came back, outscored them 20-3 in the fourth quarter, ended up winning 38-30. Oregon shows some nutsack and does that. Texas, I don't know if you guys heard, they go on the road 34-24 over Bama. Rice beats Houston. Houston getting ready for its Big 12 opener, I think next week against Oklahoma, and they just shit the bed.
Did you see just the box score? Did you see that game throughout it?
Rice and Houston?
Yeah.
It was 28-0. I know that.
It was 28-0. Houston goes back, ties it, goes into overtime, and the Rice wins. 20 unanswered, 20 unanswered.
That is one of those where you just kind of wish you didn't even come back.
Yeah. But Houston plays TCU, by the way, next week. And that
you know what? I was lying about them playing Oklahoma. I'm a liar.
I got a text from Dawson, just texted me, TCU's not that good this year, isn't it? Aren't they? And I was just like, welcome to the pack, buddy.
Dawson fucking texted me, buddy. I'll tell you about TCU. TCU 41, Nichols 6. UCF 2-0. They go on the road to Boise. Big win for them, 18-16. And then Oklahoma State late at night, 27-15 over Arizona State. I'll quickly go through the other conferences so we can get to our winners, losers, and everything else of the weekend. The Big Ten is next very quickly. Indiana 41, Indiana State 7. That was last night. 34-23, Kansas over Illinois. Ohio State, again, aforementioned, 35-7 over Youngstown State. Penn State 63, Delaware 7. Nebraska gets killed by Colorado. Purdue beats Virginia Tech. Northwestern 38, UTEP 7. I think UTEP was favored, were they not, Jack?
They were.
Or, looks like it was almost a pick 'em, actually. Michigan 35, UNLV 7 as they sleepwalk through their early pussy ass schedule. Michigan State 45, Richmond 14, Iowa 20, Iowa State 13, Minnesota 25, Eastern Michigan 6 in a game that only a mother could love. Maryland 38. Maryland's another team that struggled today. Maryland didn't look great for a while. They won over Charlotte 38-20, Rutgers 36, Temple 7, and Wisconsin. Ranked Wisconsin goes out on the road to Washington State and loses 31-22. Who in the world had the smarts and the brains and the good lookingness to predict that would happen?
Multiple people on this podcast.
Yeah.
Me. It was me.
You got clips out. We posted.
It was me. It was me, Austin. It was me all along.
I called Wisconsin not being good. You called this one.
Yeah, whatever. I don't even know anymore. In the Big 12, the Pac-12, I've already said most of their scores, but Utah over Baylor, Colorado over Nebraska, Washington 43, Tulsa 10, Oregon with the big win over Texas Tech. Arizona goes on the road and loses to eventual national champion Mississippi State 31-24.
Did you see that the final play was something?
So, Jack, I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't seen it. All I have seen is the discourse. I've seen the discourse online about it. Even Big Game Boomer's punk ass decided he'd say something about it. Arizona got robbed. Yeah, whatever.
No. That he was short, but it was if you were watching it, you would have died. Yeah, you would have died live.
I did die, and I was watching it on the Score app. But
yep.
Anyway, Casey can attest. The longer I watched that game on the Score app, the more I sunk down in my chair, and I was prepared to just fall out in the floor.
Yeah, and I know we don't, we're not gonna get into the whole scene because we're exhausted and it's 3:30 in the morning. But we were amongst, I think, about 50 private plane pilots, just private aviation pilots watching the Alabama-Texas game. So it wasn't even like Brandon could really react to anything that was happening at Mississippi State, Arizona, because no one would have allowed it.
Just me and a bunch of 60-year-old white guys just having fun. I hated it so much. UCLA 35, San Diego State 16, Oregon State 55, UC Davis, I believe, 7. Auburn goes on the road and beats Cal 14-10. Arizona State loses Oklahoma State, and USC just fucking obliterates Stanford 56-10. That was 49-3 at the half. I'll do one more conference. It is the Southeastern Conference. Of course, you've got, let's see, I already did Wake Forest Vanderbilt. Georgia 45, Ball State 3. The more big games we see between Texas and Alabama and Florida State and LSU, the more embarrassing Georgia's schedule becomes. It really is. They're at the top of the sport, and they're just playing a bunch of fucking nobodies. Kentucky struggles with Eastern Kentucky. They beat them 28-17. Ole Miss, they got pretty lucky to beat Tulane with their backup quarterback. Michael Pratt didn't even play, and Ole Miss barely beats Tulane. They beat them 37-20, but they had a late defensive score to cover that number. Miami, of course, 48-33 over Texas A&M. Come in. Arkansas 28, Kansas State 6, Tennessee 30, Austin Peay 13, Texas 34. So y'all know the fucking scores. All right. There we go. Casey Smith. Jack, do we have any more advertisements?
Yes, I was about to stop you.
Let's do one.
Because I would never want your car to stop working. But if it did, you could go over to cars.com, a leading digital marketplace that connects car shoppers with their perfect car. That's right, celebrating 25 years of helping shoppers research, find inventory, finance, and sell cars.
How long has cars.com been doing this?
Cars.com has been around pretty much as long as the internet's been around. If you've been putting in .com to something on a computer, Cars.com has been there. They've been there for every year in the 21st century and then some. Wherever life takes you next and whoever you were looking to be, there's a car for that on Cars.com.
I love cars.
Yes, we all love cars. I'm a big fan of cars, as you know, from last podcast episode where I was talking about the autonomy of the American people. But You can shop over 2 million cars for 2 million possibilities today at cars.com. There are up to 50,000. That's right, 50,000 cars added daily to cars.com. Find your next possibility on cars.com today. Where to next?
All right, where to next indeed. It's winners, losers, and shit lists. That's what we're doing. Casey Smith, other than you for getting to spend 6 hours in a room with me tonight, who won the weekend?
Well, you and 60 other old white men, like you mentioned. Obviously it's the Texas Longhorns. I mean, I feel like there's, you could talk Colorado, but all the hype going into this, and Quinn Ewers, like I mentioned when we talked about the game, it was his redemption game. It was, he got to stay healthy, and they go out in Tuscaloosa with an incredible crowd. I was on the field pregame. It was like 200 degrees. It was so hot, but just the vibe in that stadium was so high. Alabama fans thought, Texas had no business to be there, and they go out and win the way that they do. And it wasn't fluky. It wasn't, some crazy play at the end of the game. They just handled business and, proved that they deserve to be in this national conversation. And, as we've talked about them moving to the SEC, they look SEC ready. And I don't know what this means for Alabama. I don't know what this means for the SEC West, but I do know that Texas is back. Texas is here, and they obviously are going to steal the headlines for this weekend, and for good reason.
Jack, who won the weekend?
I'm going to roll with Notre Dame. They really took care of business out in North Carolina. They had to deal with a unfortunate weather delay. And, I was really impressed. I took NC State plus the points, and I was wrong. They lost. They lost against the spread. Notre Dame took care of business. Sam Hartman did what he had to do. This was his first really good game against NC State in his career, and he played NC State almost every year, I believe. So, yep, Notre Dame.
Katie Stats, who won the week?
I think, yes, obviously Texas, but more specifically, I think it's Sark, just because if they had gone out, gotten their ass beat, there's going to be a lot of questions for him. I know we talked about Quinn Ewers' legacy game, but Sark, well, he was the biggest head on the chopping block for this one. And then also, I feel like kind of Sam Ehlinger, he was a meme for so long with the "we're back." That's nullified. He's no longer a meme with that. So congratulations to Sam Ehlinger.
He was talking a lot of shit on Twitter tonight too. And again, for good reason.
Rightfully so.
All right, let me recover because I got to stop going fourth. Man, I got to stop fucking going fourth. Katie's right. I was going to go with Sark. Let me just add to Katie's Sark point. He's always been considered a very good coach, but his overall coaching record, his head coaching record, is not very good. He has not really had a breakthrough yet, and tonight was a huge breakthrough win for him, becoming the type of coach people have thought he was before he did it. So that's Sark. That's hers. I won't take Texas. I won't take Sark, but I will take the Miami Hurricanes. I think they're going to go 5-0. I think this was a game that was going to propel the winner to the top 10 in the next couple of weeks. And this was a game, I think at the end of the year, both of these teams will be ranked. That's what I think about Texas A&M. That's what I think about Miami. And Miami really took a step back last year in year one of Mario Cristobal. They had the wrong offensive coordinator. They had the wrong defensive coordinator. But they look like they fixed both of those spots, and Tyler Van Dyke is back. He is back as the quarterback he was 2 years ago. I think Miami won the week. All right. Jack Mack, who lost the week?
I would say Texas A&M. Also, you know what? No, fuck it. Alabama lost the week. This is, I think, a really, really bad loss. I think we may be able to look back on this and point to it and say this is the loss that really was the nail in the coffin. I may look like an idiot in 2 months, 3 months time, but this was a really, really bad loss. This was in your own house. You got outclassed. You got outclassed on the offensive line, defensive line. Not good. And yeah, you can make me look like an idiot for the next 12, 13 weeks, whatever. But that's who I'm going with.
Katie Stats, who lost the weekend?
I think Brian Ferentz. They're just not going to average 25 points a game. He's out of a job by the end of the year. If they didn't do it versus Utah State, not Iowa State, he's just not going to average that, and he's just fucked.
Casey Smith, who lost the weekend.
I mean, I think it's Alabama as a whole, but I'll just narrow it down to Alabama fans because of all the things that we mentioned earlier. But, you know, just to be so good for so long and to have, I mean, it was what, 21 game winning streak at home, for that to be snapped against a Big 12 team that you just think that you're so much better than. I mean, shit, we sat up on that stage and played into that, like, oh, Texas, you know, this is their game of the year and this is just another game for Alabama. Alabama fans are starting to feel it. They're starting to realize, like, wait a minute, you know, we're not going to be at the top of this forever. I still think Nick Saban is the greatest football coach or college football coach of all time. They're going to probably be fine. But those Alabama fans that we did see before we left Tuscaloosa, they were feeling reality, and they absolutely do not like that feeling. Brandon Walker, who lost the weekend.
I'm going to go with the Southeastern Conference. I think we are seeing in real time the grip of the SEC being loosened from the sport. It's happening week by week. We saw LSU get dominated last week by Florida State in the second half. We saw Alabama just get kind of outclassed by Texas tonight. And we're not used to seeing any team come into, especially a non-conference team, come into Bryant-Denny and outclass Alabama the way Texas did. And if you look up and down the list of SEC teams playing, like South Carolina got outclassed by North Carolina, and North Carolina the next week plays in overtime against App State. Missouri struggles mightily against Middle Tennessee State. All the way, Mississippi State goes to overtime. Ole Miss needed a late fluke touchdown to cover against the Tulane team with their backup quarterback. Like, the SEC just hasn't looked very good. And I think the rest of the country has caught up to them. The transfer portal and the other thing, NIL, has helped even this playing field. And you're seeing this sport go this way again, as opposed to just one little area. I think it's good for the sport, but it's bad for the SEC. I think the SEC has lost through 2 weeks. All right, shit list time. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go backwards this time. What's her name in the middle? Katie Stats.
My shit list, the weather. I think it was just so annoying. There was 16 games, we had 12 of them. Everything was overlapping TVs. You couldn't figure it out. Like how they made a game start at 11 just to space it out, and then you couldn't even deal with it because it didn't start on time with the weather. It was annoying. I hated it. Fuck with the schedule. That was my shit list.
Jack Mack.
Phil Jerkovich, after the game tonight, he was asked about, he went 10 for 32 today. Cost me a parlay. I mean, that's not why I'm not mad at him. That's the price of doing business, you know. But after the game, he was asked, what do you think about the guys, the fans booing you? And he said, if a grown man is out there booing me, like, you got to look yourself in the mirror. Like, he essentially was calling his fans losers. This is the third fan base now that Phil Jerkovich has pissed off, which is close to a record. I would assume it may be a record, and it, you know, sometimes when it's not just one, it's not just two, but it's three, it may be you, buddy. And yeah, so Phil Jerkovich is on my shit list.
Casey Smith.
Well, I really wanted to do like a whole speech about how all the Deion haters can just like relax for a little bit, but I'm going to be honest, I don't even have the energy to do it. I also can't stand up again because I'm not wearing pants for 2 weeks in a row. So I am going. I can't do it. I can't even muster up the energy. But what I will say, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's not just A&M's fan base. It's not just my fan base, but any fan base who calls somebody a bad fan because they're calling out reality, like it's a shitless thing, because there's a difference between being a bad fan and trashing the team that you love and just saying like, I am not okay with what's happening. And I feel like I see that every single year, like, oh, you talk bad about us on a national platform like Barstool. Like, no, it just is what it is. And if you're a fan of a team and you can just say, hey, we aren't where we should be, but I still love you, like, just everybody can shut the fuck up. That does not make you a bad fan. It makes you reality and you have eyeballs. Brandon Walker, your shit list, please.
Well, I think this one, and I think everybody here is going to agree, this one has been a long time coming. And I bit my tongue, and I have bided my time, and I've waited for this moment. But this person has needed to be called out for their shit for a long fucking time. And it is my mother. My mom was coming to the Barstool College Football Show today, and she said, "What time should I get there, son?" And I said, "Well, get there about 2:00. The show's at 4. Get there at 2. We'll be there. Me and Casey will be there. We'll be able to hang out with you, but don't get there any earlier because I don't know who's going to be there." Well, guess what? I'm on the plane flying there, and Dave's tweeting out videos of him and my mama sitting on the couch just hating on me. Just hate, hate, hate. That's what they're doing. And this is about 1:15, 45 minutes before I said for her to be there. And then she made me go out in front of everybody and pick Alabama to beat Texas. Why would I pick Alabama to beat Texas? I don't want Alabama to beat Texas. I've been talking Texas for 2 years. But no, I had to go say Roll Tide because she was in attendance. So my mom is on the shit list because it's been a long time coming. I'm tired of that motherfucker.
I love your mom so much. I was so
sweet.
happy to see her. She is the best. And no one talks shit about Brandon Walker as much as Brandon Walker's mother does. And you got to appreciate that. You know, I am now a mom. I can't imagine talking shit about my son. But if my son turns out to be like you, I might be able to do that.
New shit list, Casey Smith.
It's like your
All
mom,
right.
your mom's the greatest. Like she's awesome. Like, and
All right.
you know that.
Monday night, 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. We're going live. We're going to try something new just to spice things up. So if you're a roughneck, be there, and you can talk to us. You can do whatever. We're going live just to try it out. So with that, we close the book on week 2. And Reed, don't cut it out yet because we got to record a YouTube intro. But I will say to the fans, adios. We are done. That is Unnecessary Roughness.